Hello and welcome to News Central Now with me, Blessings Mosugu. The top stories at this hour. Defense headquarters condemns calls for military coup. Amnesty activists tackle police over harassment of protesters. Renewed fighting resumes in DR Congo's North Kivu region. We've got the details in a moment.
Nigeria army to take over Nigeria. I don't know why they are afraid. Why they are afraid, we don't know. We want Nigeria army to take over Nigeria. We want Nigeria army to take over Nigeria. We want Nigeria army to take over Nigeria. We want Nigeria army to take over Nigeria.
Let's begin by telling you that the defense headquarters has condemned the call for a military coup, describing it as a treasonable offence under the law. The warning came in a statement signed by the Director of Defense Information, Brigadier General Tukur Gusau, on Monday, after a viral video where some persons were aggrievedly calling for a military takeover surfaced online. It also clarified that there was never an appointment of an acting Chief of Army Staff, COAS, to replace Taoreed Lagbaja. It explained that the Chief of Army Staff is currently on a well-deserved rest as part of his 2024 annual leave. The statement also said Major General Abdusalam Bagudu Ibrahim, the Chief of Policy and Plans, is providing routine briefs to the COAS in accordance with standard military procedures. Let's also tell you that the human rights organizations calling Amnesty International and activists have tackled the Nigeria police force over the alleged harassment of protesters commemorating the 4th anniversary of the #EndSARS protest. The activists, including 3 females, were first dispersed by tear gas fired by policemen before being rounded up and bundled into an awaiting Black Maria, which transported them to Panti Police Station, Yaba, where they were detained, according to eyewitnesses. Now, in a terse statement, Amnesty International described this action by the Lagos State Police Command as unacceptable. The national coordinator of the Youth Rights Campaign, Michael Adamoye, also condemned the vicious attack on activists and protesters, which he noted has characterized the police force. Now, let's recall that yesterday marked the 4th anniversary of the tragic events at the Lekki toll gate, where peaceful protesters were met with violence during the EndSARS movement in 2020. And the memory of that night continues to resonate deeply within Nigeria and beyond. News Central's Bettina Nweli reports.
4 years ago, thousands of Nigerians gathered at the Lekki toll gate in Lagos to demand justice against police brutality in the country. 4 years after, with an attempt at a solemn remembrance, banners and placards were seized and protesters apprehended and whisked away in a Black Maria.
The case on justice. Police
group of protesters
fighting for you. Your fans are going to oppress you. Who are you going to come?
on the EndSARS Lekki toll gate massacre apprehended by a group of policemen under the leadership of the Commissioner of Police in Lagos. I'm right now speaking to you.
Look at me.
From a Black Maria.
I am beaten and my phones are seizing.
Brutalized. My glasses.
I will have been robbed.
Their phones have been
taken by the police.
It was struck away from the hands by a police officer without any provocation. We're asking here today, when the right to commemorate the dead has become illegal and criminalized in this country.
Concerned citizens, over 20 in number, united to honor the memories of the deceased, but instead were faced with heavy resistance from the police. The Commissioner of Police, though present, did not address the press and instructed that his team shouldn't address the press either.
I just got arrested now by the area commander of Island. So I'm going to meet the likes minds of people inside the Black Maria. Solidarity forever. My struggle, freedom come.
Today's event serves as a poignant reminder of the ongoing struggle for justice, freedom, and above all, the enduring spirit of the EndSARS movement in Nigeria. In Lagos, for News Central, I'm Bettina
Meanwhile, the 22 protesters arrested by the police during the #EndSARS memorial at the Lekki toll gate in Lagos have been released. The protesters had gathered on Sunday morning to mark the 4th anniversary of the #EndSARS protest, which demanded an end to police brutality in Nigeria. Hassan Taiwo Soweto, the national spokesman for the Youth Rights Campaign YRC, confirmed the release of the protesters to journalists, revealing that the Lagos State Commissioner of Police personally visited Panti Police Station to facilitate their release. However, Soweto criticized the CP's actions, alleging that the arrest and assault happened in his presence. According to Soweto, many of the protesters suffered injuries, with one experiencing severe bleeding from the nose. To other news now, Kogi State Governor Usman Ododo has sworn in the chairman and vice chairman of the 21 local government areas in the state. The swearing-in was held on Monday at the Kogi State Government House, Lokoja. The All Progressives Congress won all the 21 chairmanship seats and 239 councillorship seats. The governor charged the newly elected persons to be true servants of the people. Earlier on, the chairperson of the Kogi State Independent Electoral Commission, Maman Ndaeri, announced the result, describing the LGA elections as peaceful, free and fair. Now, COSAIC chairman explained that the results had been declared by each electoral officer at their respective polling units, and he was merely confirming the field results. Now to politics. The national vice chairman of the Labour Party Southeast, C.K. Igara, says he and some executives of the party have been subjected to untold humiliation and intimidation by the factional acting chairman of the party and Abia State government. He said they will no longer take lightly all the threats and discomfort they have suffered in the recent times, as Ima Oti and the state government will be held responsible. News Central's Chinwe Ugele has more.
Just like the meeting of Saturday at Abada was disrupted by some detectives, some members of the Labour Party leadership in the zone are meeting in the same space on Sunday to evaluate the events of the previous day. After spending nearly 12 hours in the custody of the police in Umuahia, the national vice chairman of the Labour Party in the Southeast, C.K. Igara, reveals there was no prior invitation by the police before his arrest.
Yesterday I was asking them, all these Gestapo, why not just invite me? I will come. If you invite me, I will come. But you have not invited me. And then what, you resort to come here to come and whisk me away as if you have seen a common criminal.
On the allegations by the factional acting chairman of the Labour Party in Abia State that Igara is impersonating and extorting members, he has this to say.
Based on the incompetent attitude of Imoti, the party dissolved Abia State and empaneled a new committee, a caretaker committee, for 3 months in line with the constitution of the party. And that brought Prince Dr. Gio Ndubeze as the acting state chairman.
As for Prince Ndubeze, the factional state chairman of Labour Party, there must be a thorough investigation into the arrest.
We are also happy that the police did the needful by releasing our national vice chairman within the time frame, although we will like the matter to be thoroughly investigated to know the reason for that. We are not going to just because he has been released and we allow the matter to die the way it came. No, it's impossible. So it's the accusation. We want it to be properly investigated, and somebody must be responsible because this is not the first time.
In solidarity, the Imo State chairman of Labour Party, who was in the meeting, Callistus Ihejiawa, condemns the arrest of the party's zonal chairman, saying the party ought to eschew internal wrangling.
It's regrettable that the police could be used to intimidate and harass our party officers, especially in a state that is governed by a governor from Abia's Labour Party extraction. As a father, we are appealing to him to see the need to embrace the olive branch that our national chairman extended to everyone.
To what extent can the recent developments within the Labour Party that have pitched one-time party faithful against one another affect their chances at the forthcoming elections in Abia State? Only time will tell. In Omaha for News Central, Chinwe Ugele.
Now we have Chinwe Ugele still in Umuahia to give us the details of the report that she just gave. Now, the indigenous people of Biafra has asked Southeast residents to ignore any declaration of sit at home on October 21 and 22, insisting that the order did not emanate from the group. This comes after a video and voice note circulated on social media for over 2 weeks, warning residents of the Southeast to remain indoors on October 21st and 22nd, declaring a sit-at-home order. Residents were also threatened to be dealt with should they fail to comply with the directive. The development, however, generated panic and chaos, leaving the streets, markets, and schools of major areas in the region deserted as we speak. Chinwe Ugele is still in Umuahia on standby to give us more details. Good afternoon, Chinwe.
Good afternoon.
All right, so tell us what the situation is currently in Umuahia.
Well, it's that of uncertainty because a lot of people are indoors. Just a few people that you see. In fact, about an hour ago, it was calmer because there were no vehicles on the road, no single person walking the streets and roads of Umuahia. So I think this situation is caused by fear because people do not know what to expect. They didn't know what to believe anymore. So that viral video that sent out warnings there did a lot of damage by, instilling fear in the minds of the people. So that has caused the sit-at-home that we are experiencing today. Probably by tomorrow, it may subside, but today, this is what we have at this time.
Needless to say that this has tremendously affected the economy in Umuahia. What is the government's response to this at this time?
There had not been any government response to any of the sits at home. And today's, I do not also expect for there to be any because the only reaction we've seen so far is that of the security operatives that have been, patrolling the streets and roads of Umuahia. Because there's really not much for them to do because no one is outside. So there's no trouble anywhere. So they wouldn't have lots of work to do because schools are closed, markets are not functional, business areas, whether private or public offices, are not operational. So, but generally, there's not been any response by the government so far. Probably the government must have given directives to the security operators to ensure that there's no breakdown of law and order anywhere. That is the reason why we see. But whether the in terms of statements or telling people to go out or do anything, no, none has come from the government.
All right, thank you so much, Chinwe Ugele, for bringing us the updates from Umuahia, the state capital.
Thank you.
We go on a short break now, but when we come back, experts propose progressive wealth tax in Nigeria to bridge the gap. We'll bring you the details after the break. Many thanks for staying with us. Now to more stories. The transmission company of Nigeria has promised a backup or buffer system to ensure that Nigerians won't be thrown into blackout whenever the national grid collapses. The TCN managing director, Sule Abdulaziz, who made this known, blamed aged infrastructure as old as 50 years for the frequent grid collapses in the country. The TCN boss said the investment in critical electricity generation and transmission infrastructure must be continuous. He also said that Nigerians are paying more for power because electricity production is not easy, and that citizens on Band A now enjoy 24-hour electricity, a claim that many residents would contest. Abdulaziz said despite the electricity tariff hike, power in Nigeria has remained cheaper than what is obtainable in neighboring Chad, Mali, Burkina Faso, and other African countries. Now, Nigeria is facing a significant revenue gap This is threatening its ability to meet its developmental goals, including an annual financing shortfall of over $10 billion for its Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. A key approach to addressing this issue is through tax reforms that target the wealthiest 1% who control a disproportionate share of national income and wealth. A recent Fair Tax Monitor report focuses on how taxing the rich can bridge inequality and redirect crucial resources toward national development, benefiting the broader population rather than a privileged minority, thereby advancing Nigeria's overall progress. Joining us on the news now to discuss this is a partner, Tax Regulatory and People Services, KPMG, in Nigeria, Aminat Jegede. Thank you so much, Aminat, for joining us.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for having me on the program.
And to you too, thank you so much. Now, Aminat, Nigeria is undoubtedly at a turning point in its history, with its aspirations for progress threatened by its revenue gap. Can you tell us how much of a problem that this is?
Okay, thank you for that stimulating question. So yes, when you consider Nigeria's growth aspirations in line with the revenue that is generated on a year-on-year basis, especially when you look at the budgets and you consider our expenditure and see the huge deficit that is proposed when the budget is being set, then the first thing that will come to your mind is absolutely there is some form of revenue problem. But when you juxtapose that and look at the expenditure leg, right, you would also have to ask the question, do we really have only a revenue problem, or we have both a revenue and expenditure problem? Some people have said, yes, as a country, we shouldn't just be looking at the revenue gap. We should also be looking at the quantum of our expenditure for the year, wherein we're able to also reduce some of the expenditure, both recurrent expenditure that we have, to ensure that, you know, we manage that deficit. But for the most part, when you look at the different sources of income that the country has, and you also put that together with some of our commitments to international organizations, then you can say that we have a revenue problem. But personally, I would say we should look at it as both revenue and expenditure problem.
So some have suggested the progressive wealth tax. Would you also recommend this? And if you would, tell us the reason.
Okay, so personally, I think it's even interesting to note that currently in Nigeria, we have a progressive tax system, because if you look at our personal income tax rates and you look at the graduated table, you will see that we have a system wherein the higher you earn, the more you pay in taxes. And, you know, that is what we have in the current Personal Income Tax Act. But what people are proposing is that in addition to that, some recognized wealthy Nigerians should be taxed extra. I've seen that this is a tool that is used in different countries. I mean, at the last G20 was one of the proposals during the discussion that the wealthy billionaires should be paying an additional 2% as wealth tax. But you know, when you bring it back to Nigeria, the question is, do we have an economy that will support such taxation, such additional taxation? Some of the tax reforms that you currently have been proposed by the Presidential Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms Committee already indicates that anyone that is earning above 50 million will be taxed at about 25%. So yes, that's something that the country is already considering, but most people are asking ourselves, can you really tax a people to prosperity? To say, shouldn't we be looking at other aspects of generating income? And case in point, there are some other African countries that rather than increasing taxation at the moment are actually looking for other opportunities to grow their economy. In some instances, a country like Ghana is proposing tax breaks and seeking to introduce more industries in its economy rather than, you know, increasing tax, because like most people would say, you need to earn the income before you can actually pay the taxes associated with them. So how about we give a more conducive and a more conducive business environment that would enable people to earn more money, which will now generate additional taxes for the country.
So we might as well start by outlining the HNWI's classification and potential taxation. Who is eligible for this, and what proportion are we looking at?
Okay, if you look at the report that is currently making the rounds, that was generated by the FIRS, that's the Federal Inland Revenue Service, and the Joint Tax Board, they have defined an high net worth individual as someone that earns 40 million and above, right? Now, the question is, in a country where at the moment the headline inflation and food inflation is hovering between 37 and almost 38%, would you really say someone that is earning 40 million is deemed to be a high net worth individual? If you look at countries where these wealth taxes have been proposed, and for the most part, these are still discussions that are yet to be finalized. It is still a proposal at their different regulatory and cabinets. So if you look at them, what they are proposing is to tax the billionaires. And if you bring that to monthly figures, we're looking at people that are earning in the realm of 100 million in a month. And, you know, when you bring that to Nigeria, the report has indicated that anyone that is earning above 40 million and 40 million or anything above that is an high net worth. And the question we're asking ourselves is, with the current inflation rates, with the high energy cost and the other issues that are plaguing the country, would we really describe these people as high net worth, or should we be considering people who are wealthy in terms of who are the billionaires, which is something that other countries are considering? But again, before we even set or even finalize on that, we also need to take into consideration the fact that our economy is different from theirs. The countries that are seeking to introduce taxes of this nature are highly industrialized. They have a wild number of industries. They have enough factors that is enabling their economy to develop. Right now, we are struggling with some economic indices that needs to be addressed first before we can even start talking about, taxing people a bit more.
So the president, the chairman rather, of the Presidential Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms Committee, do you think that he has or he shares the same ideas, or does he have opposing ideas?
When I look at some of the reports that have made the round, and also by listening to the chairman of the committee, it appears that there is a consideration to actually impose additional taxes on the wealthy. And if you look at some of the tax reforms that are being considered, one of them is increments in the value added tax rates. The other one is, like I mentioned earlier, an increase in the personal income tax rate for people that earn 50 million and above. And last week, there was actually a news that was making the round wherein there was a consideration for those that are earning about 100 million and above in a month to also be taxed at 25%. So yes, it appears that there is some form of alignment as to what the chairman is thinking, whether or not to tax the wealthy. But, like I said earlier, we need to put all of these things in context. We need to look at the current status of our economy. We need to look at how to ensure that all the multiple taxes that businesses are complaining about are being addressed. And when all of that has been done, then we can now think of, a complete overhaul, which is what the committee is proposing anyway. But, we need to kind of face it. We need to ensure that we are measuring the impact of the policies that are being introduced and see where we need to course correct before new ones would be added.
All right, Aminat Jagade, Partner Tax Regulatory People Services, KPMG Nigeria. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your thoughts. And we're hoping to hear more from that angle about the tax reform. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Absolute pleasure. Now to more stories. Nigeria's Minister of Defense, Mohammed Abubakar, has emphasized the need for peaceful coexistence among people of diverse ethno-religious and socio-cultural divides if peace must reign. The minister was speaking in Jos, Plateau State capital, north-central Nigeria, where he attended a stakeholders' engagement on the recurring pockets of insecurity in some parts of the state that have left many lives lost and property destroyed. Correspondent Chizoba Anyowe was there for News Central and now tells us more.
The minister was received at the 3 Division Maxwell Kobe Cantonment by the General Officer Commanding Major General Abdusalam Abubakar, where he inspected the quarter guard. Next port of call was the 3 Division Sports Complex, where he addressed troops of Operation Safe Haven 3 Division and those from the 551 Battalion, Nigerian Air Force.
My mission is simple: to thank you for the effort you are putting in returning normalcy to Plateau State. We have seen tremendous progress in fight against insecurity. The President asked me to come and thank you for the effort and to tell you to do more.
The minister made some remarks before he went into a closed-door session with stakeholders from Barkin Ladi, Bokos, Mangu, Riom, and Wase local government areas of Plateau State, worst hit areas of violent attacks in recent times.
We spoke frankly, and I represent the federal government. There are recommendations that have been sent to the state, recommendations that the federal government will look into. And rubbing mind with the representative of the governor, I believe those recommendations will be discussed and will be taken care of. And I believe peace and normality will return to Plateau.
Issue of understanding, one, between all the parties involved, and then secondly, trying to get people to give or accept some concessions in order for us to have, genuine peace within the state. By the time we put in place 1 or 2 other measures in place in order to enhance this issue of understanding and for people to accept to give concessions, we will have a better peace within the state.
Host of the event and GOC 3 Armored Division, who also doubles as Commander Operation Safe Haven, said events such as this remain one of the non-kinetic measures to end criminality within the Operation Safe Haven's joint operations areas.
Stakeholders' engagement such as this is one of the non-kinetic tools which we have employed to address security issues on the plateau. And I am pleased to inform you that our initiative is largely working. I want to assure you that we are not resting on our COAS in our efforts to attain our mandate of ensuring a safe, secure, and prosperous Plateau State.
These critical stakeholders were not left out in their thoughts on the event.
It is something that we cherish, and we believe that it will help us to live together in peace by the grace of God. And so we pray that what we have discussed will be implemented to the fullest.
The GOC, honestly, and the SF commander, they've been putting in their best. All they need is small cooperation with the traditional rulers. They need the cooperation of traditional rulers.
This meeting is a very good one because if all of us here will hear what the elders said, we will stay in peace.
Now, if events such as this and assurances given here are anything to take home, then sooner than later, pockets of insecurities here on the plateau and in some other parts of the country will be a theme of the past. From the 3 Division headquarters in Jos for News Central, Chizoba Anyowe.
That was News Central's correspondent, Chizoba Anyowe, on the report combating insecurity, especially in the north. Now to more stories. The Lagos State government has partnered with private organizations to host the 18th annual Walk for Nature event in Lagos State. Now, this walk is held each year to promote nature conservation and improve environmental stewardship across the region. Representatives from various sectors in a few-kilometer walk highlighted the importance of preserving green spaces. News Central's Igbalani Omoni reports.
The need for environmental conservation in Nigeria, especially in Lagos, is becoming increasingly urgent due to the rising population growth, pollution and waste generation. Lagos, with a population of over 21 million people, is one of the fastest growing cities in Africa. The state generates over 13,000 metric tons of solid waste daily, which ends up in drainage channels, lagoons and waterways, polluting the environment. Over 70% of the population lacks access to central sewage systems, resulting in wastewater discharge into the environment. Air pollution from vehicular emissions and industrial activities is also a major issue. The ecological situation is deteriorating rapidly due to deforestation, coastal erosion, and threats to biodiversity. There needs to be a balance between human development and environmental protection to ensure sustainable growth. Recognizing the importance of environmental conservation, the Lagos State Government and its partner, the Nigerian Conservation Foundation, holds the 18th Walk for Nature.
Today's work is to create awareness. It's one of our flagship awareness programs that we normally do every year to create awareness about pressing environmental issues so that everybody will be aware of it.
Activities that led to all of those things are what we're trying to cut back on. You know, let us save nature, let us protect nature, let us protect biodiversity, let us see that we conserve nature. You know, look at, for instance, the mangrove, you know, that we have in Lagos State. They've all been taken off by developmental projects. These are all part of nature. They all help us to create balance, ecological balance in nature.
We must all be aware as adults before we're able to translate this. And again, having this work for nature is one of the steps, you know, that we can take as a government, as a community, to ensure that we educate ourselves first.
Experts say the continuous partnership between the government and the private sector will help drive environmental education, advocacy, biodiversity conservation, and ecosystem restoration initiatives in the state.
The message is beginning to sink in, particularly in Lagos. We need to protect the environment because the environment is our life support system. And if you don't protect your life support system, you're going to have a lot of problems.
With concerted action and commitment from all stakeholders, experts say it is imperative to fund conservation efforts, implement waste management solutions, promote sustainable consumption and production, and educate citizens on the need for a greener Lagos. In Lagos 4 News Central, I am Igbalani Omani.
Coming up on the news, renewed fighting resumes in DR Congo's North Kivu region. We'll bring you the details after the break. Thanks for staying with us. Now, in a remarkable initiative that highlights the power of collaboration and compassion in healthcare, Nigerian doctors and South African nurses over the weekend joined forces to address healthcare gaps through a community medical outreach program at the Nigerian consulate in Johannesburg. This unprecedented partnership aims to provide essential healthcare services to underserved communities in South Africa. By pooling their expertise, Nigerian and South African healthcare professionals are working together to treat various medical conditions, distribute medications, and promote overall health awareness. News Central's Bongani Saziba has more.
This initiative has become a beacon of hope for many, especially those who face financial barriers to healthcare. For countless individuals, accessing medical treatment has become a daunting challenge, and a lifeline is being extended. Today, Nigerian doctors and South African nurses are turning compassion into action.
So we came up with this initiative to come every year to give free medical services to our nationals so that people can have access, even if it's once in a year, to doctors.
These dedicated Nigerian doctors are not only treating patients, but are also giving back to South African communities they reside in, fostering goodwill and trust.
We write tests for them, we check their blood pressures, their sugar level, and we advise where necessary, and even medications where necessary we give.
Today is not just about medical treatment, it's about connection, compassion, and creating a community where everyone feels valued.
Some families, they are about 4, 6. If you can go to a private doctor, you know how much you will spend. So this initiative from the Nigerian Doctors Forum is a very huge one. And we, the Nigerian community here, we appreciate them.
I came here to be helped because outside there, things are difficult. It's not all of us who have money to go to the special doctors.
In this initiative, it's not just about treating ailments, it's about instilling hope and health empowerment within the communities. This relationship between Nigerian doctors and South Africa stands as a testament in the health profession.
Everybody comes here to get free medical treatment from the Nigerian Doctors Home. It's something that unifies the country and also changes the narrative and the stigma that's attached to how people see Nigerians or South Africans.
I also took this wonderful opportunity to get my health checked as well. Like many here, I know how difficult it can be to access proper medical attention. These lives were touched, spirits uplifted, and futures brightened. One free consultation at a time. These Nigerian doctors and South African nurses remind us that healthcare is a universal right, and that kindness knows no borders.
The access to quality medical care is a privilege that many cannot afford. These Nigerian doctors have come together to bridge this gap through community medical outreach programs. At the Nigerian consulate in Johannesburg, for News Central, Bongani Siziba.
News Central's correspondent Bongani Siziba on South Africa healthcare. Now, Democratic Republic of Congo is witnessing renewed clashes between M23 rebels and government-aligned militia in the restive eastern region, breaking a fragile truce that had lasted several weeks and leaving 14 civilians wounded. 2 teenagers are said to be among the bullet-injured people in North Kivu region. A ceasefire between the DRC army and the Rwanda-backed M23 had been in place since early August following mediation by Angola. Peace talks between Kinshasa and Kigali had since stalled, but a new round of talks is planned in Luanda next weekend. President of Egypt, Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, issued a warning stating that regional issues may result in unbearable economic strain on the populace and a re-examination of the economic reforms that have been required by other countries. Since 2022, Egypt has been engulfed in an economic challenge, the economy, which has been dominated by businesses with ties to the military and has spent years concentrating on costly infrastructure mega projects, is almost totally dependent on import. The amount of foreign debt has increased, the currency has had multiple devaluations, and inflation has increased as a result. This year, the International Monetary Fund authorized an additional $5 billion to the previously agreed $3 billion loan for the most populous country in the Arab world. Now to stories outside the African continent. Presidential candidate Donald Trump was seen serving customers at a McDonald's in Pfisterville, Traverse, Pennsylvania. The former president, who has repeatedly rejected his rival Kamala Harris's claim that she worked at the fast food giant in college, says he has worked at least 15 minutes more than she did.
And then you can hang that one right back over there. Thank you. And then we're going to grab it.
Keep it tight. We got the salt on it. Never touches the human hand.
Very good. Very
nice
good.
And full. I love salt. Wait a minute. I spilled some. I'm very superstitious. Now it's over the left shoulder. Now, let's go.
Now, King Charles' visit to the Australian Parliament was interrupted by Indigenous Senator Lydia Thorpe's anti-colonial slogans shout, shocking assembled lawmakers and other dignitaries. The independent lawmaker requested that the monarch relinquish the Australian lands taken from them, as she decried what she described as a genocide of Indigenous Australians by European settlers. Now, Australia was a British colony for more than 100 years, during which time thousands of Aboriginal Australians were killed and entire communities displaced. The country gained de facto independence in 1901, but has never become a fully fledged republic. King Charles is the current head of state. United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres urged significant investment in a fund created to safeguard Earth's biodiversity as he addresses delegates to COP16, the world's biggest nature protection conference in Cali, Colombia. The Global Biodiversity Framework Fund, GBFF, was created last year to help countries achieve the goals of the so-called Coming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, adopted in Canada in 2022, with 23 targets to halt and reverse the loss of nature by 2030. According to the monitoring agencies, countries have made about $250 million in commitments to the fund. Now to sports. The 2024 ITTF Africa Championships concluded on October 19 in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, featuring intense competition among 17 African nations over 8 days. A notable highlight was Ethiopia's return to the podium after 24 years. Egypt continued its dominance, winning 5 out of 7 events. Defura Mokonin shone for the host nation, earning 2 bronze medals and making history by becoming the first player outside Nigeria, Egypt, Tunisia, and Algeria to reach the men's singles semi-finals, defeating number 3 Mohamed El Baili. Nigeria claimed its first men's team title, beating Algeria 3-1, while Egypt retained the women's title by defeating Nigeria 3-0. Hannah Goda successfully defended her women's singles title, and Omar Assar won his 12th continental title in the men's singles. Still in sports, Zambia's Copper Princesses have been eliminated from the 2024 FIFA Under-17 Women's World Cup after suffering their second consecutive defeat. Poland secured a 2-0 victory with goals from Kinga Wawas and Waronka Asaniewicz, sealing Zambia's exit from the tournament. This marks Zambia's second participation in the competition following their debut in 2014. Despite the early exit, Zambia will face Japan in their final Group D match on the 23rd of October before exiting the tournament. Now, the New York Liberty clinched their first ever WNBA title with a thrilling 67-62 overtime win against the Minnesota Lynx in Game 5. John Hill Jones led the Liberty with 17 points and was named Finals MVP. Brianna Stewart's 2 free throws tied the games with 5.2 seconds left in regulation, sending it into overtime. A crucial 3-pointer from Leonie Fibech and key plays from Nyara Sabali and Stewart sealed the victory. Stewart, with 13 points, 15 rebounds, and 4 assists, celebrated the team's perseverance. Minnesota's Nafisa Collier scored 22 points, but the Lynx were denied a record 5th title in a hard-fought series. We're still talking sports. Sabalenka has returned to the top of the WTA rankings, replacing Iga Swiatek. The 3-time Grand Slam champion now holds the #1 spot for the 9th time in her career. Sabalenka's successful season included defending her Australian Open title, winning the US Open, and triumphs in Cincinnati and Wuhan. Players are mandated to compete in 6 WTA 500 events, but Swiatek's decision to skip the tour's Asian swing due to fatigue meant the French Open champion will only manage to play in 2 seasons. The penalty saw her drop below Poland's Sabalenka in the rankings. Now, neither Iga Swiatek nor Aryna Sabalenka were in action last week, but with some restructuring in the WTA rankings based around WTA 500 event commitments, there's a major change at the top. Both players missed several WTA 500 events, leading to 0-point penalties. Sabalenka's total dropped to 9,706 points, while Swiatek's fell to 9,665. Next week, further points deductions will create a bigger gap ahead of WTA finals, with Sabalenka expected to have 9,016 points and Swiatek 7,970. That's all we have at the news at this hour. But before we go, let's take another look at some of our major stories. We told you that Defense Headquarters has condemned call for military coup. We also mentioned that Amnesty International activists tackled police over harassment of protesters. And finally, we mentioned that TCN has promised backup system to avert frequent grid collapses. We also told you that renewed fighting has resumed in DR Congo's North Kivu region. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, StarTimes channel 274, Avo TV and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'm Blessings Mosugu.